Constructing a giant dam is a battle against the relentless force of nature, requiring precise engineering to hold back millions of tons of water. The process begins long before any concrete is poured, with an exhaustive analysis of the earth itself. Engineers must locate a valley or canyon where the bedrock is solid enough to support immense weight and resist the colossal horizontal push of a reservoir. Geologists drill core samples hundreds of feet into the ground to inspect the rock structure, searching for hidden faults, fractures, or weak layers of clay and shale. Once a site is deemed structurally sound, the immediate challenge becomes building a dry workspace in the middle of a flowing river. To achieve this, the river must be temporarily rerouted. This is accomplished by excavating massive diversion tunnels through the solid rock of the canyon walls. Tunnel boring machines, measuring over 50 feet in diameter, grind through the stone using rotating cutter heads equipped with hardened steel discs. As the machine pushes forward, it continuously installs precast concrete segments to line the tunnel walls, ensuring they can withstand the tremendous velocity of the diverted river. In harder rock, engineers use the drill and blast method. Computer-guided jumbos drill precise patterns of holes into the rock face, which are then packed with specialized explosives. The outer holes are detonated milliseconds before the inner holes, directing the blast inward to create a smooth, stable tunnel profile. Once the tunnels are complete, construction crews build upstream and downstream cofferdams. These are temporary barriers, often made from compacted earth and rockfill, dumped directly into the river. The upstream cofferdam blocks the natural channel, forcing the water into the diversion tunnels, while the downstream cofferdam prevents water from backing up into the construction site. With the rivers safely bypassed, the massive area between the cofferdams is pumped completely dry. Now the true foundation work begins. A giant dam cannot simply sit on top of the riverbed. It must be keyed directly into solid, unweathered bedrock. Fleets of excavators and bulldozers strip away millions of cubic yards of mud, loose gravel, and decaying rock. When they reach solid stone, workers use high-pressure water jets and compressed air to blast the surface clean. Any remaining loose fragments could create a slip plane, a catastrophic failure point, where the dam could slide under the pressure of the water. To prevent water from seeping underneath the dam, a phenomenon called piping that can erode the foundation and lead to collapse, engineers create a deep grout curtain. Drill rigs bore a line of narrow holes deep into the bedrock, sometimes extending hundreds of feet below the foundation. Workers insert packers into these holes to seal them at specific depths, then pump in a high-pressure slurry of water, cement, and chemical sealants. This grout is forced into every microscopic crack and fissure in the bedrock. As the cement hardens, it creates an impenetrable underground wall, locking the rock together and sealing off any paths for escaping water. With the foundation secured, the construction of the dam body commences. Giant concrete dams generally fall into two categories: gravity dams, which use their sheer massive weight to hold back the water, and arch dams, which curve upstream to transfer the water's pressure into the canyon walls. Often, massive structures combine these principles into an arch gravity design. Pouring millions of cubic yards of concrete presents a unique thermal challenge. As cement mixes with water, a chemical reaction called hydration occurs, releasing a massive amount of heat. If a giant dam were poured as a single continuous block, the interior would become so hot that the concrete would expand, crack, and shatter as it cooled. To solve this, the dam is built as a series of interlocking vertical columns known as monoliths. These blocks are poured one layer, or lift, at a time. Each lift is typically about 5 to 7 feet thick. To minimize the initial heat, the concrete is mixed using crushed ice instead of liquid water, and fly ash is added to the mixture to slow the curing process and reduce thermal output. The concrete mixing plant, often built directly on the cliffside above the dam, operates 24 hours a day. Giant overhead cableways stretch across the canyon, carrying massive steel buckets that can hold up to 30 tons of wet concrete. These buckets are lowered precisely over the monoliths, and their trapdoors are opened, depositing the concrete. Immediately, crews use heavy hydraulic vibrators, which look like large metal cylinders, plunging them deep into the wet mixture. These high-frequency vibrations liquefy the concrete, forcing trapped air bubbles to the surface, and ensuring the mixture flows tightly against the formwork and the previous layer. Before a new lift is poured on top of an old one, the surface of the previous layer undergoes green cutting. High-pressure water is used to blast away the top millimeter of concrete, exposing the rough aggregate beneath. This ensures a perfect, watertight mechanical bond between the layers. Even with ice and fly ash, the curing concrete still generates too much heat. Before pouring, workers lay a serpentine network of thin steel pipes across the surface of the previous lift. Once the new concrete is poured over them, refrigerated water is pumped continuously through these embedded pipes for weeks or even months. This cooling system draws the heat out of the core of the concrete block, shrinking it slightly. Once the concrete has reached its final stable temperature, the cooling pipes are filled with grout and sealed forever. Because the dam is built as separate blocks, there are tiny gaps between the monoliths. To make the entire structure act as a single watertight shield, workers pump specialized cement grout into these vertical joints under immense pressure, locking the blocks together. Within the rising concrete, engineers must embed the critical functional structures of the dam. The most prominent of these are the penstocks, massive steel tubes that will eventually carry water from the reservoir to the turbines. These pipes are fabricated from high-strength steel plates, sometimes over 2 inches thick, rolled into cylinders and welded together. Because they will experience extreme hydrostatic pressure, every weld is rigorously inspected using industrial X-ray machines and ultrasonic testing to detect microscopic flaws. The penstocks are gradually encased in the concrete of the dam body, anchored securely to prevent them from vibrating under the sheer force of rushing water. Another crucial internal feature is the gallery system. These are miles of tunnels built directly inside the dam at various elevations. They serve as access corridors for inspection and house the intricate monitoring equipment that watches over the dam's health. Plumb lines, long wires suspended from the crest of the dam with heavy weights at the bottom, hang inside vertical shafts. By measuring the position of the wire relative to the shaft walls, engineers can detect if the dam is tilting or deflecting. Piezometers are embedded in the foundation to measure the pressure of any water seeping into the rock, while extensometers monitor the surrounding canyon walls for microscopic shifts. A giant dam is a living, breathing structure. It bends and flexes slightly depending on the water level and the ambient temperature, and these instruments ensure the movement stays within safe tolerances. As the dam reaches its final height, construction focuses on the spillway, the safety valve of the entire system. If a catastrophic flood occurs, water must be safely routed past the dam to prevent overtopping, which could wash away the foundation and destroy the structure. Spillways are designed to handle millions of gallons of water per second. When water travels down a spillway at high velocity, it creates areas of extreme low pressure. If the pressure drops below the vapor pressure of water, the water literally boils at ambient temperature, creating vapor bubbles. When these bubbles are carried into higher pressure areas, they collapse with violent force, generating shock waves that can blast chunks of concrete out of the spillway floor. This destructive phenomenon is called cavitation. To prevent it, engineers build aeration slots into the spillway chute. These horizontal steps pull air into the rushing water, creating a cushion of bubbles that absorbs the shock waves of cavitation and protects the concrete. At the bottom of the spillway, a flip bucket or a stilling basin is constructed. A flip bucket curves upward, launching the high-speed water into the air like a ski jump, allowing it to fan out and lose its destructive kinetic energy before crashing harmlessly into the river down below. A stilling basin uses concrete baffle blocks submerged in a deep pool of water to churn and dissipate the energy, ensuring the foundation of the dam remains undisturbed. Once construction is complete and the diversion tunnels are sealed with massive steel gates and thick concrete plugs, the impoundment phase begins. The reservoir slowly fills, sometimes taking years to reach its designed operating level. As the water rises, hydrostatic pressure builds against the upstream face of the dam. This pressure increases linearly with depth, meaning the bottom of the dam experiences exponentially more force than the top, which is why dams are thick at the base and taper toward the crest. In an arch dam, the immense horizontal push of the water attempts to flatten the curve of the concrete. This naturally compresses the material, which is exceptionally strong under compression, and drives the force outward, locking the dam tightly against the solid rock abutments of the canyon. With the reservoir full, the dam is ready to perform its primary active function, generating hydroelectric power. The process starts at the intake towers, which stand in the deep water of the reservoir just behind the dam. Huge steel grates, called trash racks, cover the entrances to prevent logs, ice, and debris from being sucked into the system. Behind the trash racks, massive steel roller gates can be lowered to completely shut off the flow of water for maintenance. When the gates are open, water rushes into the top of the penstocks. Because the intakes are situated high up and the power plant is located hundreds of feet below at the base of the dam, the water possesses a massive amount of potential energy. As it falls through the steep penstock, this potential energy is converted into kinetic energy. The immense column of water, weighing thousands of tons, accelerates until it reaches the powerhouse. At the bottom of the penstock, the water enters a scroll case, a massive steel shell shaped like a snail shell that wraps around the turbine. The scroll case is precisely engineered to decrease in diameter as it circles the turbine. This ensures that the water maintains a constant velocity and applies even pressure to all sides of the turbine simultaneously. Inside the scroll case, the water passes through a ring of wicket gates. These are tall, vertical metal blades that act like overlapping shutters. A powerful hydraulic system pivots these gates in unison to control the exact volume of water entering the turbine and to direct the flow at the optimal angle. By adjusting the wicket gates, operators can instantly increase or decrease the power output of the dam to match the demands of the electrical grid. After passing the wicket gates, the water strikes the runner, the rotating heart of the turbine. Most giant high-head dams use Francis turbines, which look like massive steel propellers with carefully curved blades. The water strikes the outer edges of the blades, pushing them forward, and then flows smoothly down and out through the center. The sheer mass and velocity of the water impart tremendous rotational torque to the runner. The blades are machined to exacting tolerances, capturing maximum energy from the flow while avoiding turbulence that could cause structural vibrations. As the water exits the turbine, it drops into the draft tube, a cone-shaped pipe that gradually widens. This widening slows the water down and creates a slight vacuum, effectively sucking the water through the turbine and extracting the last possible fraction of energy before the water is discharged back into the river through the tail race. The spinning turbine runner is connected to a massive vertical steel shaft, often several feet in diameter, which transfers the rotational energy up to the generator. The shaft spins on highly specialized thrust bearings. Because the entire rotating assembly, the runner, the shaft, and the generator components, can weigh over 1,000 tons, standard ball bearings would be crushed instantly. Instead, the shaft rests on a thin film of high-pressure oil pumped between flat metal pads. The assembly essentially floats on this microscopic layer of oil, spinning with near-zero friction. At the top of the shaft sits the generator rotor, a massive steel cylinder lined with powerful electromagnets. These electromagnets are energized by a small direct electrical current, creating a potent rotating magnetic field. Surrounding the spinning rotor is the stationary stator, a hollow ring packed with thousands of densely wound copper wire coils. As the rotor spins, its magnetic field sweeps across the copper coils of the stator. According to Faraday's law of electromagnetic induction, this moving magnetic field forces the electrons inside the copper wire to flow. generating a massive alternating electric current. The electricity generated within the stator is raw and highly volatile. Heavy copper busbars carry the current out of the powerhouse to an adjacent switchyard. Here, enormous step-up transformers receive the electricity and increase its voltage to hundreds of thousands of volts. This extremely high voltage allows the power to travel over long-distance transmission lines with minimal energy loss due to heat. Once the electricity reaches distant cities and industrial centers, smaller transformers step the voltage back down to safe levels for homes and businesses. Meanwhile, back at the dam, the cycle continues relentlessly. Sensors monitor every drop of water, every vibration of the spinning turbines, and every millimeter of deflection in the immense concrete wall. Through a masterpiece of material science, fluid dynamics, and electromagnetic physics, a canyon is closed, a river is tamed, and the raw gravitational pull of the Earth is transformed into continuous, reliable power.